Hello and welcome back. In this video, we are moving on to a discrete logarithm problem, and in particular, we'll be looking at L-Gamal. And basically what L-Gamal problem states is that given g, x, and a large prime p, we want to compute y equals g to the power of x mod n. So I guess we also need to pick a specific prime n. I should add that. Anyway, so once you compute those values, y and g to the power of x, if you're given y, how do you get value x? Okay, and in normal mathematical formulas, you have to take the logarithm for both sides. But the question is, how can we calculate that? So this is similar to the RSA problem where you need to calculate the vectors, but here you need to calculate the power by trying each one. Okay, so it can be summarized like this. Given g, y, and a prime p, find an integer x, if any, such that y equals g to the power of x mod p. Okay, so by going the other way, by computing g to the power of x, this is easy, right? Doing the power operation and then doing the modular operation after that, straightforward. However, if you only have g, y, and p, so not the x, and trying to get the value x, and this becomes a quite tricky part because you actually have to try individual numbers. So again, you are forced to do a brute force attack. Okay, so we can use this fact to construct what we call a Diffie-Hellman and L-Gamal type public crypto systems. Okay, Diffie-Hellman gets used in things like digital signature algorithms, etc. So you will see that more often. Diffie-Hellman is a public key distribution scheme, so it's a little bit different to RSA, where RSA you can also use it for data encryption, but Diffie-Hellman is only used for key exchange. So this is useful only if you want to do a key exchange safely with the trusted parties. Okay, so this is proposed by Diffie and Hellman back in 1976. Many applications, but just to name a few, it gets used in the SSH, secure shell, SSL or TLS, as well as IPsec. So Diffie-Hellman gets used in those protocols that secures our networks today. Okay, so let's have a look at how the Diffie-Hellman key agreement protocol initiates. So users can exchange a secret key, okay, by using this. And what it does is you don't have an agreed secret key to begin with, but you are creating a secret key through this protocol. Okay, so it does not require any prior secrets. You don't have to establish any of those before. And this agreement protocol can be executed in real time because these operations are relatively quick. Okay, so based on discrete logarithms of large numbers, we have to have p, g, and x so that we can calculate value y. So that's what we're going to do. So let's have a look. First, we choose p, a large prime number, which is going to be used as our modulus. And we also select a g. G is what we often call a generator. There is some requirement for the generator. For instance, it cannot be 1, it has to be relatively prime to p, and so forth. However, satisfying those conditions is not too difficult. So once we have picked p and g, this can be shared across both sender and the receiver. So even if the attacker has p and g, they still have to crack the private values that Alice and Bob picks here. So they decide a random number a and b, and typically you will create the values a and b pretty large so that guessing these numbers is very difficult. Okay, so initially what we do is send g to the power of a mod p to Bob, and Bob will send g to the power of b mod p to Alice. Okay, so Alice now has g to the power of b, and Bob now has g to the power of a. But what Alice also has is this secret key a. Okay, from Bob's point of view, you have g to the power of a, but this is a single number, and you cannot guess a unless you're trying to crack it, and that takes a long time. Same with Alice. So with the given information, what you have is you have g to the power of b, and from Alice's point of view, you compute by to the power of a from that number, and that essentially becomes g to the power of ab. Okay, and once you calculate that, that will produce you the agreed value k. Same with Bob. Bob has g to the power of a, and you have to raise it by to the power of b. This essentially ends up being equivalent to g to the power of ab, which Alice also has, and that's the agreed key value k. Okay, so the simple concept can be used to generate value key that can be used by both Alice and Bob, where even if you got g to the power of a and g to the power of b, like the attacker has here, you cannot create g to the power of ab. Okay, so this is assuming that p and g are both publicly available, with p being at least 512 bits. Okay, so the user picks a and b, a common key k is now generated. Attacker can have access to g to the a, g to the b, p, and g. So if we go back here, anything in the middle can be intercepted by the attacker. So all of those are shared into public. So the values, only two values that are secret are a and b. Okay, but if you only have g to the a and g to the b, it is very difficult to compute g to the a, b, because you either have to crack a or b. Okay, so this is that discrete logarithm problem where you have the power value already, but you don't know what the power. You have the product value already, but you don't know what the power value used was. Okay, so let's have a look at an example. Alice and Bob chooses public numbers. So example, we're going to use a small value. P is 17, G is 6. Okay, so you can easily tell that they are relatively prime. Alice picks A equals 5, Bob picks B equals 3. And at this point, these numbers can be any number. It doesn't even have to be prime numbers. G to the power of A mod 17 is equivalent to 6 to the power of 5. So that's the generator to the power of Alice's secret key A. This produces 7. Similarly, for Bob, produces 12. Okay, and they exchange, so Alice sends 7 and Bob sends 12. So Alice and Bob now compute K, which is G to the power of AB. So from Bob's point of view, you received 7, okay, which is 6 to the power of 5. So you raise it by power of 3. So 7 to the power of 3 mod 17 is going to give us 3. And from Alice, you do 12 to the power of 5, which is 6 to the power of 3, which is also going to produce you 3. Okay, so the agreed value between the two, k, is 3 now. Okay, so Alice and Bob can now use 3 as their symmetric cipher key. Hopefully that was quite straightforward. However, Diffie-Hellman key exchange is susceptible to some attacks, and one of the major one is man-in-the-middle attack. Okay, so what man-in-the-middle attack does is intercept communications in between and either sniff the packets and see the data, or make alterations to it. So here is our normal operation, but now we're going to assume that there is a third party Eve in between. So when Alice sends over her information, Eve intercepts the packet. Instead of it reaching Bob, Eve is going to give Alice her own credential by using value C. Okay. Similarly, Bob was expecting some value to come over. Instead, Eve is going to send her own value, g to the power of C, to Bob. Okay. Then at this point, what what is happening is Eve has established a connection with Alice and separately with Bob. So Eve will have two keys, K1 and K2, K1 with Alice and K2 with Bob. Okay. Once this has been established, whatever Alice sends, Eve can open it up and either echo it back to Bob and same the other way, or make changes as you see fit. So this is the danger of man-in-the-middle attack. So the attacker can exploit Diffie-Hellman with man-in-the-middle attack as with the basic standard. Okay. The problem is that there are no authentication checks done, so there's a lack of authentication. So in order to prevent man-in-the-middle attack, we just introduce some authentication items when we do so. Okay? So using signatures and other techniques that does provide authentication. So this is built into the ISO standards 9796. The latest version that I checked was 2010. But maybe there's a 2020 version. I'm not sure. I haven't checked that one. So here is one way of seeing mitigation. Okay, Alice sends g to the power of a, but at the same time, Alice sends her identity a, and so you can think that a is like a publicly known Alice's identity value. Okay. So what Bob can do now is send Bob's own identity, B, capital B, sends g to the power of b, and also the signature of g to the a, g to the b, and a. Okay. So once the signature has been sent, Alice can respond that with her own signature. So signature produced by Alice using g to the b, g to the a, and Bob's identity b. Okay, so this is confirmed that the sent value g to the a and also g to the b in both directions are part of the signature. So you can check that those are confirmed, and so you cannot forge those signatures. Okay. So this includes the identity in the signature to thwart identity misuse attacks such as the man-in-the-middle. So let's have a look at an example. Okay, so like this, Eve can intercept the Alice's message and trying to send Eve's own detail by sending Eve's identity, g to the power of e, and trying to sign using Eve's signature, GA, GE, and A. However, when Alice trying to validate the signature, Alice wanted to talk with Bob, right? So Alice will chuck in the details into Bob's signature and then see that the signature generated is actually not Bob's but somebody else's. So as soon as you detect that there is a difference, the Alice know that it cannot be validated using Bob's public key. Okay, so from here you can detect that somebody else has used the sent details and sent you back. So you're not talking to Bob anymore. So Eve cannot forge, Eve cannot forge Bob's public key without knowing Bob's private key. For instance, you can use RSA to create authentication like before. So some sort of a authentication mechanism can be used to prevent somebody from forging it. Okay, so RSA is not the only one that you can use for authentication, but that is outside the scope in this video. So here we assume that Bob's public key is known to Alice in order for Alice to check the produced signature is correct. Okay, so by simply introducing that authentication, Eve can quickly pick up whether there is a man-in-the-middle attack or not. So next, Diffie-Hellman can be used by multiple users, more than 2 users at a time, and the process is like this. Each user will send the product value g to the power of their own private key to the next user. Normally it goes into cycles, okay? And then in the second step, you raise it to the power of your own key again and then forward it, okay? And because we have 3 users, only 2 steps is needed. Finally, you can calculate the shared key of g to the power of ABC amongst the 3, okay? So if you have, say, 4 users, you need to push this 3 times. Basically, up to n users, you will have to push this n minus 1 times. But essentially, at the end, what you end up with is nobody sharing their secret key, but everybody agreeing to the key to use in their symmetric encryption cipher, the K value, okay? So we covered RSA in the previous video and we looked at Diffie-Hellman key exchange here. So what's the difference between them? Well, as mentioned before, RSA can be used for both message encryption and decryption as well as exchanging keys. And it also has a mechanism to provide authentication and allows anyone to communicate with the user. So that's a very beneficial side of RSA. However, the cons was that it is quite slow and very computationally expensive to do so, even with today's computer. On the other hand, Diffie-Hellman, you cannot encrypt or decrypt messages. It is only used for sharing keys, typically for symmetric ciphers to use, okay? In addition to sharing keys, we will also need to include mechanisms like authentication in order to prevent identity misuse attacks such as man-in-the-middle attacks, okay? And finally, you have to know who you want to talk with. So in Diffie-Hellman key exchange, you know exactly who you want to share the key to begin your communication, whereas RSA, you just leave your public key out in the public, and then anybody can use that public key to communicate with you. So those are the some key differences between RSA and Diffie-Hellman, and they both serve their own purposes. So hopefully we got a clear understanding of each public key crypto systems and how they are useful in practice. Yeah, so we'll finish here and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.